Good morning, gardening friends. It's a gorgeously sunny Sunday morning, February 25th. And a lot has happened this last week. I did a lot of gardening this week. Spring is coming. In my zone 9A, our last frost date is about 3 weeks from now, March 11th through 20th, sometime in that time frame. So we are definitely approaching spring for us. I thought I'd start here in the front porch. A couple new things happening here. Of course, the last of the amaryllis blossom. I left all the old flowers on, but this was that little one that came up. So 7 blossoms. That was something else. So by next week, it'll be planted out in the yard. My Christmas cactus is blooming. A little late, but it's blooming nonetheless. I do like the flowers on that. I've had this ever since I left college, which is many moons ago. I think I've repotted it twice. And it lived for many years in that spot and bloomed every year. And then I put it in the back corner where the begonia is, and it did nothing for the last 4 or 5 years. So I've moved it out to pride of place, and it is starting to bloom again. So maybe next year it'll have more. I did go to Lowe's this week and I bought some freesias. They're a very pretty color. Not too fragrant. I do like freesias, usually have a delicious fragrance, a nice sweet one, but apparently when they develop this beautiful purplish color, they kind of hybridized out the scent, or at least it's very mild. But let's see, other than that, everything else is about the same. Let me have one last sip of coffee. That's my lime. Oh my goodness, coleus, lime thyme coleus. That was a cutting I took, and that's going to go out in the yard pretty soon. And you'll see a little later that the cuttings of that cutting are also being rooted now. Okay, let's go out. Take a walk around and start showing you all the progress. There's some noise in the background. There's some construction going on Sunday morning at 8 o'clock. It is what it is. Cyclamen are still in bloom. I did go ahead and clean up some of this bed. The main thing I did was I moved these little daffodils. I had them there, but through the years they kind of got tossed around and in different places, so I dug them up and sort of just stuck them in clumps. Of course, you see the bananas are coming back. Camellias are in absolute full bloom. I do like the look of that one, except now it's sort of going past, so it's got a lot of brown to it. My fig tree, you see all the new leaf growth on that. There is another little stub coming up from the ground. I'm going to let that grow a little taller, and then I'm going to take a cutting of it. Got some little hyacinths coming back from another year. One of my azaleas is coming back. Then Encore Autumn Carnation. This bed will be cleaned up this week. The little circular bed here. There you can see the double white camellia, the high fragrance. It does have a nice fragrance to it. I can smell it from here. The no-name variety. And my yellow. I believe it's called Butterfield's yellow. Royal Velvet. It's just about past blooming, but another week or so. And of course, Professor Sargent. One nice thing about Professor Sargent is it ages well. It turns brown, of course, ultimately, but these kind of die slowly and hang on to the plant, as opposed to these kind of look the same and then turn brown and then fall off. I planted my lantana over here. Not much to see because lantana's just stubs right now, but I had them in pots by my front gate. And you don't have to be delicate with lantana. I basically just broke the roots with a trowel and literally just yanked them out so they have no dirt to the flowers. But they're will do well. Here is one of my, I guess you would call it, well, it is a witch hazel, Loropetalum. This one has slightly darker blooms. It's a reddish color than the ones I have in the backyard. Over here, the pansies are coming back. You can also see my little mini daffodils. Again, I tidied them up and clumped them together to sort of make a border of daffodils. And I've been taking them from my potager. I still have a big clump here that I'm going to be moving to the backyard, probably tomorrow. The thing is, you kind of have to move these while they're in bloom because they die back relatively quickly and then you forget where they are. Here you can see I got rid of these in the middle. Got me some dill. And I planted these red geraniums that I like in the place where the lantana was. For some reason, this butterfly bush died back quite a lot, but it's got some good buds at the base, so it'll come back. And here you can see I dug out most of these daffodils, but for the little clump in the center. Here I've also redid the front of it. And I cleaned up my Australian tree fern this week. And you can see it definitely has a bud coming. And a lot of the branches that I cut off were still fleshy. So that was good that at least it's lived. It is alive. That's all that you can ask for. Over here, really the only main thing that's happening this week is the Pieris japonica has definitely bloomed. I love the look of that. It's called Lily of the Valley Bush, or Pieris japonica. I have another one blooming on the other side of the deck. And of course I cleaned up my African iris, cut them back, and spent some time cleaning up this bed. I straightened up the hellebore, so now you can see, you get a good view of the hellebore flower. And I got some foxgloves. And this is ground ginger, which I would not have noticed, but it is blooming. Its flower is way down at the ground. Its Latin name is Asarum Canadense. And it is native to Canada, hence the Canadense. And I had this one, was tucked away underneath the camellia bush. And I wound up, I gotta get down on my knee. I cut one of the flowers off just so you can see a close-up. I don't usually do this. But there you can see what the actual flower looks like. I read up about it, and they come very close to the ground when they bloom. You can see one in there. And they are supposedly pollinated by flies. And it's still kind of up in the air as to whether it's pollinated by flies or they give shelter to flies. Hence they're very close to the ground, but somehow flies play into it. No one knows for sure what part. Of course, my daffodils are still in bloom. I did put the leaves out here in this flower bed or shrub bed. Camellias look absolutely gorgeous in the sun. Buds are coming on all of my hydrangeas. Those are all, I only have Nico Blue. I watered everything last night. It's a tad on the dry side here. I do need to do a little more weeding in this little bed because things are starting to grow, including weeds. My Gara is doing well. Heliotrope is still in bloom. Of course, I brought that in. This little troth is doing fine. So far, the birds have not found my sedum. Let's see, how can I do this without messing things up? I'm going to take you in my propagation chamber. These are the things that I've been working on this week. These are the cuttings that I took of the cutting of the lime thyme coleus. The one thing I will tell you about lime thyme, you only need to buy one in your lifetime because they are so easy to propagate. These cuttings I took way back in December, and I just never got around to potting them. I put them in a vase, and they brought some nice color into my dark kitchen, and they didn't die. So I just kept them in the vase till this week. So a couple of months in a vase, they developed nice roots, and so I've just potted them up a few days ago. This is the Iachroma cutting I took about a month back. And these two are the pink angel trumpet cuttings that I got from my neighbor Sarah, where all the construction is going on. Here's another ground orchid. I'm going to switch that one out and put that in the front porch. And over here, you can see I've got my last two amaryllis coming. Another bunch of paperwhites that I planted up this week. And I only see one in that other pot, maybe two. I've got some grape hyacinth bulbs I bought this year, so I'm forcing them in the pot. And my poinsettia, the one I've had now for going on 4 years, is blooming, and these bracts are going to keep getting bigger and bigger. And last year's bracts just fell off. It likes this spot. That's where that plant lives. I've also started some seeds this week. Again, this garden was cleaned out. And I have a friend that has a Bradford pear, and I love the leaves of the Bradford pear. Makes a nice mulch because they're very dark. I am going to divide up my toad lily this year. It looks like it's got a little bit off to the side that I can cut off and try in another spot. Here's where I planted in a couple of these mini daffodils. I have a stick here, actually a chopstick. There you can see the toad lilies I got last year from Walmart. Bought 3 of them. That one is doing the best. There is another one here, because I put the stick there, but it's so small you can just barely see it about 1 inch away from the stick. And of course I still have my snowflakes or leucogyms blooming. I did go ahead and fertilize everything I have in pots. It's that time of the year again to start my fertilization routine. This loropetalum is absolutely in full bloom. If you go back to last week, it had hardly any flowers out. And this week it is an absolute full bloom. This angel's trumpet, it did not get hit by the frost when I cut that long stick off. You can see it's got new sprouts coming up. That's a white angel's trumpet. Gingers are doing fine. And here I'm starting some seeds. I have borage here, and I started some red Swiss chard over there. In 3 weeks, it'll be hopefully nice little plants by then. My roses, I did fertilize my roses, and they're looking perfect. I did cut them back probably about a month ago, and you can see the anthocyanins, the red coloration in the leaves. That will stay in the leaves, but the chlorophyll will take over and will make the leaf turn green. It'll basically swamp out the red color with time. The red color is basically a sunscreen for the fresh new growth. And these are the geraniums. I got them from Lowe's. They were a decent price. They were, I think, $5, $6 a pot, which for individual geraniums is not bad. So I potted them up in these little square pots. They are the replacements for the cyclamen I have on my front steps. They'll be able to grow a while because the cyclamen will stay there probably for another month before they die back. It's noisy today. Here's what it is. This was a new tricolor ginger that I got this year. And of course, here's where the wild amaryllis, or native amaryllis, species amaryllis, lives. And I decided to put this bromeliad in between. This is really a flimsy table, so you can't put anything really heavy on top of it. So those are probably about as heavy as it's going to get. But I got this bromeliad last year in bloom. It has a large pink blossom, and it has 2 little pups on the side. So it's nice and green. I'm going to leave it. And I repotted this plant, the Clivia kaffir lily. I got that as a seedling 4 or 5 years ago. And it's split to 3. Hasn't bloomed yet, but there's always hope. My Nepenthes is looking nice and green, all except for this one stalk that I cut back last year. But it should start to develop a little more. And of course, these cyclamen are going to do fine until the heat gets to them. I did go ahead and fill up all of my fountains. I would have turned them on, except apparently there's a short somewhere in one of my connections because it kept popping the circuit breaker. There's always something. So, not a big deal. And in here I still have yet to spread some mulch. But you can see the ligularias coming back here as well as over there. Let's go this way. Of course, the ferns are coming back. There, you see all the little fiddleheads. Here's the other Pieris japonica. I wish they had a fragrance that looks so pretty. It's a very slow growing shrub. The one that used to be at Bellingrath that I used to like to visit was about 8 feet tall. It probably took about 30 years to get that tall. And unfortunately, it was removed to expand the Oriental garden. Oh well. Back in here, you can see the palm has been frostbit, but it still has green bits to it, so it'll do well. Lady palm. I think I may weed out that fern that's coming up in the bromeliad, because that's a pretty big fern. Or it will be pretty big eventually. Birds have been using these bird baths like crazy. I had stopped filling them for the longest to try and discourage animals from coming back here, and I think it has worked. Knock on wood. So I went ahead and filled them up again. Plus it's spring and it looks nicer with the water going and gurgling and looking good. Here you can see buds, but no flowers yet on my blueberries. This one probably would have had more, but I cut it back because it grew a little too floppy last year. And I did notice while I was here this week, if you ignore the big weed in front of it, you can see that that angel's trumpet has got a new sprout from the ground, so it did survive the winter. That's a peach-colored angel's trumpet. I'm never quite sure when you get a new angel's trumpet, even though it's a big one, if it's going to come back or not, if it established enough roots. But apparently that one did, so it's coming back. Yay! My bottle brush tree or bush, got a lot of buds on it, so it's going to do well this year. First time it's been exposed to sun, because last year was when we took out this loquat. Back in here, I still need to do a little work. I'm going to move some of the mini daffodils. I've got some here, but I'm going to increase the amount on either side. And I'm going to put a couple of clumps in amongst these. I want this to be my place for daffodils. I don't notice it now, but late yesterday afternoon, the fragrance of these daffodils was outstanding. So I will be planting probably a nice big clump here. And on that side, even though they're small, from this vantage point, you will be able to see them. And maybe a couple in the front. One here, and on that side, underneath the cycad. Oh, there's baby in her spot. This camellia is definitely in full bloom. You kind of don't mind the pink solid color coming through when you see the red color coming through when you have so much pink. It's not quite as annoying. In fact, it kind of looks like a bouquet. I don't mind it, like I say, when you got so much pink, but when it's just one or two, it gets on my nerves. See, that one has an entire branch at the bottom that's red, and I will cut that branch off. Strawberries still have flowers, but as of yet, no fruit. So there you have it. It is definitely feeling like spring. I did have some books a few years, well, I got rid of them, unfortunately. I collect old gardening books, but there was a set, published in the 40s, where this gentleman basically drove from Florida up to New York, documenting spring along the way. So he started early in February and visited every botanical garden along the way so that he could catch the bulbs coming out or catch the first blossoms coming out. I think it was called In Search of Spring or Following Spring. And he had one for summer, fall, winter. The others were boring, hence I got rid of the bunch. I did see there is some damage to that palm, the Canary Island, but it's green in the middle, so it should recover. Oh, and I didn't point out the yellow jasmine on the back. Actually, this whole area is looking nice with the yellow. Got the threadleaf chemisiporus, yellow daphs, and the yellow of the vines. So I will leave you with that for today. Have a good week. Take care.